Uncle Claude with another video. I'm from New York, and I was born in 1969. In fact, God willing, I'll be celebrating my 51st birthday later on this month. This was a hard one, and they say, unfortunately, it comes in threes. Unfortunately, it actually came in fours this particular time, but three in the sports world. And of course, the one entertainment with the very shocking and sad, well, all deaths are sad for the most part, the great Chadwick Boseman. And unfortunately, once we found out the news that this man had dementia, unfortunately, even though a lot of us were obviously hoping against hope, we knew that he had a very short period of time. And if you don't know who he is, obviously you don't know sports. But he's bigger than sports, especially here in this town. And obviously this is in his heyday with the New York Mets, where he is and will always be the franchise. George Thomas Seaver, gone at the age of 75. He was Tom Terrific. He was the franchise. He was quite simply the greatest player in New York Mets history. In fact, he made the Mets relevant. And the reason I bring up 1969 is because that's when New York was at the center of the sports world. The beginning of the 69-70 season would field the New York Knicks, where they won their very first NBA championship. And I understand it was the 70s playoffs, but they started that season in October of 1969. The New York Jets, it was the 68 season, but they played the Super Bowl in January of 69 in that historic day in Miami. But the most improbable of all of those teams was the New York Mets of 1969, because those other two teams obviously were actually very good if you know the history of the Jets and the Knicks in the late 70s. They actually had a lot of good teams. The Jets from about 66 on, when Joe Namath really blossomed into a top-flight NFL quarterback. And of course, Willis Reed, Walt Clyde Frazier, Dave DeBusschere. That trade changed the entire team. Dollar Bill Bradley, and several others, of course. But if you remember the Mets, they were the laughingstock of baseball from their inception of 1962 up until, well, basically when he and Jerry Koosman, Gary Gentry, and a young fireballer that pitched in relief not by the name of Nolan Ryan came to the team. They had obviously Cleon Jones, and later on they added Tommy Agee, Don Clendenin. Of course, legendary Mets like Jerry Grody, Bud Harrelson, Ed Kranepool, Art Shamsky. But let's face it. And I understand that Willie McCovey won the Most Valuable Player Award, but this man finished a very close second, and he did win the very first of his 3 Cy Youngs. He's the greatest pitcher I ever saw, period. As far as whole career, outside of probably Mariano Rivera, but that's a different deal. He was the guy when starting pitchers actually threw 200-plus innings. And he was just a joy to watch. And he was a joy to listen to when he became a commentator for the Yankees and later on the Mets. He did for both teams, but he and Scooter, and if you're a Yankee fan, you know, obviously I'm referring to Phil Rizzuto. They had a very nice banter, and you could tell he really enjoyed working with him. And he would break down pitching just like a professor in college. And it made you want to pitch, even though I couldn't pitch, of course. But it's just another one of the people that, you remember in your youth. And when you lose guys like that, you feel your mortality a lot more. And I tell you what, the world is a much sadder place, especially this city, which has really become very cold and very callous and very barren. Has become much more so. And I understand that, listen, he's from Napa Valley. He had retired there, had a very good vineyard, and a great career as a winemaker later on after baseball. Very profitable. But he will always be a New Yorker, even though he played for several other teams after being dealt by the Mets. Of course, the Cincinnati Reds, the White Sox, back to the Mets again for one season, and then the White Sox and the Red Sox. But he will always be a New York Met, and it's just a very sad day. Very sad here in the Big Apple. Rest in peace and Semper Fi. Tom Seaver gone at the age of 75. Please like, share, and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. Uncle Claude signing out. All positive thoughts and condolences to the Seaver family. Take care and God bless.